So I'm just coming off of a trip to the Alps where I did a 7-day stage race. And each day we would run between 20 and 30 miles per day with 6,000 to 10,000 feet in elevation gain. And it was leading into, it was like such a monumental task that I couldn't fully grasp it. And it was just that act of faith. Like, okay, if I do the work, I listen to my body, I build over 6 months, I will be ready for something that I'm not even sure how you prepare and get ready for it fully. And it went through the whole cycle of doubt come nighttime. Every night that I got into bed, I just had this, I say crippling because my skin was uncomfortable. I
Mm.
had so much anxiety and I'd talk myself into being like, tomorrow, not a bad idea. Let's fly home. Let's end this like right now.
Yeah.
I came to Austria. I got to run around a little bit. That was fine. That was fun, but this is too much. I don't want this. And it was the first time in a long time that I really put myself at cause for being on an initiative path.
Mm.
That time leading up is like the death of me until that moment. Like that might be a little dramatic, but there is that letting go, that fear of, you know, stepping into a new space, like that perfect amount of stretch without being pushed into the fight or flight or just trying to survive the experience. It's simply me sharing, being with people and almost just putting out that energy of there's possibility out there.
Yeah. Hello, friends. It's Donnabelle, your host of To Hum is Human, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of tuning into our intuition to express our passionate purpose. In this episode, The Art of Action, Cultivating Confidence and Connection, we explore how to show up fully in our bodies and our lives, how action can become a form of meditation, and what it means to trust the quiet wisdom that emerges when we move with intention. My next guest is someone who lives these values every day. Matt Shamey's journey has been anything but linear. He studied political science and Spanish at Grinnell College while running cross country, a passion that sparked a lifelong love of running and moving through the world with presence and purpose. His curiosity led him to immerse himself in global experiences, from studying abroad in Costa Rica and Nicaragua to leading transformational programs across Latin America and East Africa, including time spent in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. These adventures gave Matt a deep understanding of connection through culture, language, and shared challenge. Eventually, he brought this awareness home, where he now focuses on guiding others to awaken their inner strength through power Vinyasa yoga, running, and community practice. He is currently the director of strategic planning at Strive, a unique international service learning program specifically designed for the student athlete and active adult travelers, featuring trips that provide a balance of learning through visits to local areas and sightseeing, cultural immersion, and options for athletic training, active exploration, and even racing. Whether he's leading a yoga class or helping someone cross a literal or metaphorical finish line, Matt's work is all about cultivating confidence, resilience, and authentic connection. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Donnabelle. I appreciate that warm welcome. Good to be here.
Matt, let's start with your roots. Growing
Yeah.
up here in Western Massachusetts, what experiences or people shaped the way you move through the world today?
Yeah. So I had my family, my parents still live in Leverett, and I grew up If we go way back, I went to Leverett Elementary School and I went to Amherst High School. And probably my most transformative high school experience was playing Ultimate Frisbee. So
Mm.
this is in the late 90s. This is when Tina Booth led the Ultimate program at Amherst High School. And this was a pivotal moment when Ultimate, which is now a professional sport, in the late 90s, it wasn't really taken seriously. And Miss Booth was able to get our team recognized as a varsity sport
Wow.
at the school. And at that time, there weren't many other ultimate teams around. So we would play UMass, we played Amherst College, we would go to college tournaments. So it was my first real exposure to one, being really resilient in having a vision and a belief, meaning her vision and belief in the program and the team and us, and bringing that to fruition. We were really good. We won the national championship.
Wow.
And that was great. But the real, what lingers is that community and that sense of connection. And that first time where I was really nervous, doubting myself. And I had someone who really believed in me and held
Mm.
that belief in me until I fully embodied that myself.
Mm.
That's one gift that I really come back to and love that idea of okay, how can I empower other people? How can I
Mm.
help facilitate community in this space and really stand for excellence?
Yeah. Well, what a powerful mentor to have at that time, in high school. That's kind of a pivotal moment in our lives just before real adulthood. To be able to have someone there to be your cheerleader, to believe in you, and to empower you in ways that you probably never had in that way. So I know now you've had this deep connection to running for much of your life. What has running taught you about resilience, discipline, and intuition?
I have to pause because it's all those things. So I'm just coming off of a trip to the Alps where I did a 7-day stage race. And each day we would run between 20 and 30 miles per day with 6,000 to 10,000 feet in elevation gain. And it was leading into it was such a monumental task that I couldn't fully grasp it. It was incomprehensible to me. And, I have my teammates, my friends here, and I trained with them. And it was just that act of faith. Okay, if
Mm.
I do the work, I listen to my body, I build over 6 months, I will be ready for something that I'm not even sure how you prepare and get ready for it fully. It went through the whole cycle of doubt. We arrived in the start town about a week beforehand, so we'd have time to acclimate. And it was, gorgeous alpine village. Each day was great. We get out and explore. And then come nighttime, every night that I got into bed, I just had this, I say crippling because my skin was uncomfortable. I
Mm.
had so much anxiety and doubt, and I'd talk myself into being tomorrow, not a bad idea. Let's fly home. Let's end this right now.
Yeah.
I came to Austria. I got to
Mhm.
run around a little bit. That was fine. That was fun, but this is too much. I don't want this. And it was the first time in a long time that I was really put myself at cause for being on an initiative path. And
Mm.
in that initiative path, that time leading up the death of me until that moment, that might be a little dramatic, but there is that letting go, that fear of stepping into a new space. And then finally, that first morning of the race came, the sun's coming up over the mountains, and there's 1,000 of us in
Wow.
the starting area, and everybody's singing, everybody's dancing. And I had this moment of realization. I was like, oh, this is how we do this. We do this
Mm.
with joy. We do this together.
Mhm.
Everyone here has been training for at least 6 months. So this is the culmination. This is the celebration.
Yeah.
That's what brought me through, and I had a tremendous experience. I did really well, and now that I'm on the other side of that, recognizing now's the time for recovery. And
Hmm.
I've been thinking about this a fair amount because in everything I read and everyone I talk to, there's so much emphasis put on the build up, the training, the actual event. And just as essential is like what happens afterwards. How do you recover? How do you take care of your body so that there is resilience, so that there
Mm.
is healing? I went out for a run the other day, made it about a mile in, and my body was like, no, friend, you need to stop. And that's the listening, where it'd
Mm.
be so easy for me to override that and then really get an injury and then
Mm.
not be able to run for a long time.
Yeah.
So now I'm really in that space of honoring the cycle. And the cycle that I'm in right now, it's autumnal leading
Hmm.
into the winter of my body. And my body
Hmm.
needs that
Yeah.
downtime, that hibernation, so that there can be a spring.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe speaking with you and hearing about that whole experience and knowing that our bodies do have an intelligence within it, that when we pay attention to it, it actually helps us, right? Sometimes we override the cues that our body is telling us, which then could
Mhm.
lead to injury, could lead to prolonged recovery when it could have been much shorter. When you were talking about the death of me. It could have just been the death of what your idea of what was possible. And then sort of an opening into a new way of possibility. And how beautiful is that to have given yourself that opportunity of acknowledging, yes, there is fear and doubt. But yes, if you once you ride that wave of emotion, on the other side, you actually feel the joy, you feel the reward, and you feel the connection with all the people running that race with you.
Yeah.
How amazing was that? So you've led programs across the world, Latin America, East Africa, and most recently in Austria, providing these immersive, life changing experiences with young people and adults. What inspired you to step into this kind of work?
The origin story is immediately after college, I went traveling with a good friend of mine through South America for 3 months. And we had a really good time. And it was just that we had a good time and we both got back and were reflecting and sharing that there's more. Like we just scratched the surface and there's so much more. And the more comes from community, comes from connection, comes from sharing the experience with other people and having true ties into the communities where we could potentially go. And so
Mm.
I came back. It was just like one of those serendipitous moments where I was at my parents' house and talking to my neighbor and sharing my experience with her. And she was like, do you know my good friend Kenny Hahn, who lives in Northampton and runs an international experiential education organization? And I was like, wait, can you take a step back? International experiential education organization? I didn't even know that was a thing. And I've in school always been interested in education, but never felt pulled to be a traditional classroom teacher.
Mm.
So I learned about international experiential ed, and this
Yeah.
company was called Global Roots, and I started leading programs with them in Latin America. And to make a connection, that was in 2008. We're in 2025. On this running trip I just went on in Austria, I reconnected with a friend who I first met in that space, and we went together on this program.
Isn't
Um,
that interesting? I always find, well, first of all, my own experience and my own knowing is there are no such things as coincidences. It is sort of the universe's way of telling you that you are ready for this and that you are open to it. And
yeah.
interestingly enough, that opportunity landed right in your lap with the next door neighbor. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yes, it was almost too easy. Just like you're saying. It's like, Matthew, when you're ready, we
Yep.
have this invitation,
Mm.
but you're not going to open it until you're ready. It's like
Yeah.
hiding in plain sight.
Absolutely. Travel often has a way of stretching us beyond our comfort zones. And you even explain that and describe that during your recent trip to Austria. But you're also working with students and adults navigating new cultures, challenges, and fears. How do you help others cultivate courage and confidence in those moments?
Good question. And it is, as you alluded to, it's all in creating a space where students can thrive, like that perfect amount of stretch without being pushed into the fight or flight or just trying to survive the experience. So the programs that I lead are very, you could call them very high touch. We're very engaged. We lead an in depth orientation beforehand, going over everything that we've experienced and can think of and could conceive of. An example would be we stay with homestay families. And so we'll do skits and the leaders will play the homestay families and the students will role play. And if we're going to a Spanish speaking country, they'll be speaking in Spanish. So role playing, what happens when my homestay mother gives me way too much food? Or what happens when my homestay mother gives me something she's so proud to serve me and it makes my stomach curl? It's preparing as best we can in that way and also being intentional. Like each day we start with a group meeting, checking in with students, seeing how they're doing, go through the day's activity, and each evening we conclude with reflective space. So that is also to keep the container of the group very connected and cohesive so that students really feel supported, feel a sense of belonging so that they're able to stretch beyond what they currently conceive as possible. And that will just happen within the settings that we go to. Daily life,
Right.
walking down the street, speaking another language.
And, because you provide that support and, in a way, pre teaching, which helps them become aware of things that may come up and may possibly trigger them in ways to give them tools to integrate some of those things and to be honoring what they're encountering, right? And the people
Mhm.
they encounter with to have the awareness of them in relation with those other inputs. Now, when you returned home to Western Massachusetts, how did you integrate these global lessons into your teaching and even your daily life?
That's a good question because I'm sitting in that space right now and, reflecting on my experience. And it's really through sharing what I encountered, sharing what I felt. And it's through that sharing and creating that listening with those that I interact with in terms of the possibility. How might that land in someone else's life? I don't know, but to link back when we were talking about, the anxiety I was having before the event, and I spoke to it as a death. And I love the way you reframed it in terms of me coming up against something that I didn't know was possible. And then through the experience and now being it on the other side, I feel like a whole new realm of possibility and openness is parent in my life. Maybe your thing is not running. That's fine. But what is something that you feel passionate about? What is something that you care about? And what is the perceived inhibition in taking action to create what you want in your life? So
Mm,
for right now, in this instance, it's simply me sharing, being with people, and almost just putting out that energy of
mm.
there's possibility out there. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, the word fear, you can think of it as an acronym as false experiences appearing as real, right? So that's sort of
Mhm.
our mind and our ego coming in the way of what our true passion is, which is in our heart, which is love and our love for the sport and our love for the challenge and rigor. I've heard also, too, that every emotion lasts for about 90 seconds. Everything travels in waves in our existence. There's always a high and a low. And if you could just ride the 90 seconds of this uncomfortable feeling, just know that it will then actually come down. And if you're able to go beyond that high peak and then realize it will settle, it'll help you kind of build that muscle within you of riding uncomfortable times and fear or anxiety, and know that you'll be able to come out the other side with more wider perspective, if you will. Now, these days, Matt, much of your energy goes into teaching power vinyasa yoga. What is power vinyasa yoga?
I think you give me a perfect segue. Power Vinyasa Yoga is using simple, powerful principles such as your gaze and your breath to connect to your physical form. And then through that connection, tap into this bigger energy that one could refer to as flow. One could refer to as vinyasa, that which has no blocks. You could refer to it as intuition, and intuition being the universal current of life force energy. It's a system to tap into a power that is bigger than oneself.
Mm, I love that. I love that. And you do actually build power through the practice. And I know only because I've taken classes with you. I also practice power vinyasa yoga, but there's something in that practice that stretches people, that takes them to places that challenge their own maybe physicality, their stamina, their mind in saying, I don't think I can do this. And either honoring it or saying, like, maybe I can just try a little bit extra and see what happens. How does the approach of yoga and power vinyasa yoga complement your approach to leadership and action?
One of the things that I love about the style of yoga that I teach is the principles are universal, meaning when I'm running, I come back to the same principles that I engage when I'm on my mat. Having a vision, seeing one point out here in physical reality, being out of my head, being in the three-dimensional world, listening to the sound of my breath, tapping into, my own rhythm, listening to my body, and then moving from that space. Well, and then it really does come back. It always comes back to listening. And I think that's one space where, as I evolve as a teacher, where I evolve as a leader, there's infinite growth in that space of listening. And so as a leader, sharing my vision with the group and then really listening, are people with me? And if they're with me, great. And then if there's some resistance, listening, okay, where's that resistance coming from? And coming
Mm,
from the space of, like, when I was younger and encountered resistance, it would be easier for me to make that wrong, or maybe make myself wrong, or make the student wrong. But now coming into that space where, with more confidence over leading so many trips, of actually being curious and being like, okay, tell me more.
mm,
And it's the listening that's becoming the superpower.
mm.
And the more I'm able to practice listening, it's like the more, like, the almost like the invisible world becomes apparent, and people share a lot more than perhaps they even realize when you're really being with them, listening to them. And then in that space, being able to reflect back and perhaps helping someone see what was previously a blind spot, or helping someone amplify a strength, and through that strength, bridging connections with other people in the group.
So beautifully said. I absolutely resonate with that. Now, as a teacher and a leader, you often talk about helping people awaken to how powerful and capable they are. What role does movement play in building that kind of self trust and inner strength?
Personally, I believe I was born wired to move. It's my natural proclivity. And when you were talking about the cycles, the 90-second cycles of emotion, when I'm moving, I mean, that's what it is, energy and motion. I'm generating a channel because I am a very emotional person, generating a channel for that energy to move. Many people think of running as a individual sport, and I get that. And at the same time, running is such a simple, challenging endeavor that it can also be such a powerful team sport. And
Mm,
I'll share this example. When I was doing the event that I was doing, it ended with 3 miles along a lake to the finish area. And by that point, my body was tired. I was wiped out. It felt like I knew I was going to finish, and it felt just each step was so painful. And it felt like I was never going to get there. And then this person came up behind me. And as a runner, you can sense when someone comes up behind you in a racing situation, you can tell whether they're going to like make a power move and pass you, or as this person came up, he's like, I'm here to be with you. Let's be here together. And I could tell like he was hurting probably just as much or more than I was. And there was something like transcendent in that space of like, we're both hurting and we have a vision. We're going to finish this together. And it was like that, like it reminds me of that Rumi quote, the wound is where the light comes in. It was like we were two people like in our woundedness, also generating this collective energy that individually we couldn't do on ourselves. And I know I'm starting to wade into the ineffable a little bit. That's the power of movement and the power of running. And so the programs that I lead for these students, oftentimes running is their North Star. Had
mm,
students who struggle with suicidal ideation, students that have lost parents, students who have, or are kids growing up in this challenging time. And so having running as their North Star and us through Strive creating this container where they can come together and have their own distinct vision and North Star and be like, we can create this collectively and
mm,
generate this sense of belonging. Because for a lot of the students, my experience with them is they felt very siloed, they felt very alone. And then here we are creating this group energy together. And then you place the students in somewhere magnificent like the Grand Canyon, and then they're connected to the big energy
mm,
of the earth. And as opposed to like, I think people feel like maybe, oh, I might feel alone in the void of the Grand Canyon. No, when you get in there, you're going to feel connected, tapped in. So it's like, I really feel like so much of my job is just bringing students into the right set and setting where they can thrive and they have the
mm,
ability to thrive, and they don't need anything outside of themselves to thrive. And I say that before because I've encountered a number of students who are prescribed a lot of drugs. And yes, like obviously, like prescription drugs are definitely needed for some students, but some students, like they had this self awareness, like they're prescribed Adderall and they know they don't really need it, but it's like they're prescribed it as a performance enhancer so they can read more, study harder. I think that can bring in some self doubt of like, am I good enough just as I am? And then
mm,
so creating this space where it's be like, yeah, you are. You have everything you need, and you will develop the skills to be and feel the emotions. Cause that's a lot of anecdotally just hearing students say like the Adderall, these drugs, like they don't feel as much when they're on them, but they can just stay up all night studying. And so
mm,
that's like, we're going into some other space around holistic human beings and creating that space. But, that's what really lights me up, and even if, they go back to school and they're on the meds again, but they'll remember,
yeah,
they'll remember.
yeah.
Yeah.
I I love how you talked about how feeling the runner behind you, right? Kind of getting a sense of their energy and what you think they'll be coming in with, and how both of you came through in your collective way, carried each other essentially
Hmm.
together to the finish line. And there's something to that bringing that sort of sense of the other around you and with you at the same time. Curious, when you speak about working in these beautiful landscapes, there's something very grounded about being in nature and something that really just being in the oxygen, breathing in the air, feeling your feet touching the earth is so grounding that gets us out of our heads in a way. And sometimes I think of mental health as more about emotional health when we're really in a culture that thrives and drives on intellect. And we're really not taught how to feel the feelings and really
Mhm.
stick with the emotions to help process them. We're always trying to sort of dull them down so that we can function intellectually in our lives. And I know that is another conversation, but what you do, bringing people out into nature or being in a yoga class and being present really helps in grounding them to this present moment. And I know yoga and running isn't just physical, it's deeply spiritual and emotional. How has that practice helped you navigate challenges in your own inner landscapes on and off the mat?
I'm so glad you brought that up because when I was listening to you talk, I was like, yeah, where was that class in high school and college around emotional literacy? And I do believe that's part of the role we play in being leaders in this space because most of the content that we create and share with students is around emotional literacy, is around understanding one's emotions and not being afraid of them and letting them move through you and being able to express them in a very productive way. And by productive, I mean a way that invites deeper connection.
Hmm.
And, I'm a guy. I remember what it's like to be 15. I didn't have a lot to say because I was feeling so much. I almost was afraid to open my mouth. It'd be like a volcanic explosion. I do really enjoy. It's very healing, I would say, for me working with students and providing the space for them to open up. And there is something powerful in that our programs are outside of the traditional academic context, which I do think then gives students some permission to be in and behave differently than they might otherwise. And is such a beautiful way just to channel emotion, just let the energy move through. And that's so much of the coaching is just let that energy move through. Be a channel for the energy to move through. Okay, there's anger moving through. There's going to be perhaps a desire to put a story on that anger. Like, oh, I'm angry right now. Why am I angry right now? What happened earlier today? Is it something my partner said to me? Something my kid said to me? Oh yeah, my kid said something to me. That's why I'm angry. Or perhaps it's just anger moving through. It's energy moving through you. So can you just let that energy move through you and let it go? And I say that because that's my practice too. Just let the energy move through.
And I believe too, some of it is just acknowledging it, first of all. Yeah, there's anger there. Maybe my upbringing wasn't the best possible. And to be kind of kind to yourself by acknowledging that, yeah, your experiences kind of affect you now and it's okay. But to not let it hold you back, to kind of let it move through you, like you're saying, let it express itself either through running or yoga or movement. The title of this episode is The Art of Action. Taking action sometimes can feel overwhelming, especially in uncertain times. What would you say for listeners who might feel stuck or unsure of their next step? What advice would you offer to help them tune in and take action from their hearts, not their minds, but their hearts?
Well, I would never discount the power of having a physical practice. And there's so many different ways that that can manifest itself. It can be yoga, it can be running, and it can be so many other things. Finding that one thing that one can commit to and build a habit from. And so that it's something consistent, reliable, always present, no matter what's happening. Like, no matter what's happening in my life. Okay, maybe I can't go running based on traveling through a city or an injury. Maybe I can't even practice yoga because I'm sitting on an airplane. One of my favorite practices is my breathing practice. And there's so many different breath work practices to bring one into themselves.
Can you share one breathwork exercise somebody could do on a plane?
Well, this is one that I heard from Andrew Huberman, and I like it because it mimics the response of you are crying. It's called the emotional sigh. So you take a full breath in through your nose, and then you take a sip at the top, and then you just let it go. Almost like, and I can relate to, like, if I was ever sobbing, that
Well, that's such a good one. I just did that too, and I just felt that like release. It was just like a real release. And to actually take that second breath was like, ooh, I really got to like breathe in a little deeper to get that second breath in to fill that lung. That's such a cool exercise. I
yeah,
love that.
I like that.
So, Matt, how do you see community playing a role in individual growth? Why is connection to others just as important as personal practice?
Because we live in community. I think it's important that we change the languaging around that because it's all community. It's us. I don't exist in a vacuum. You don't exist in a vacuum. All growth is from community. It's like I could sit by myself in my house and do all this personal development work, but it's like, who cares if I can't go out and express myself and share with other people and connect with other people? It's all relational.
Mm, yeah.
And that's something that I'm really taking to heart too. There's nothing you can really powerfully create by yourself. It's about being someone who has a vision, being up to something bigger, and then enrolling your community, whatever your community. And our communities are created of myriad different facets, but it's like enrolling the community in this vision and possibility and getting away from the individualism. And I get it because it's deeply embedded in me. It's deeply embedded in how the United States was formed, this idea of rugged individualism. And I think that's a really disempowering myth, particularly because so many people do feel alone and lonely right now in the world. It comes back to remembering community, remembering that, like you were saying, the power of the natural world. The natural world isn't something outside of us, it is part of us, and we are part of it.
Mm.
Yeah,
And and also too, I like to think of it as we're all part of the same web, right? When
right.
we light up ourselves, hopefully that sends a ripple through the entire web of us, of
Yeah,
all that
yes.
is. And inspiration is really us lighting up, right? And when we are inspired, we help ignite that in others because we are emanating that, we are sharing that through our collective stories and our connection. Matt, where can listeners find you and see what you're up to?
Yeah, so you can visit our website at strive.org. That's exciting because we're going to be rebuilding the website. Like, we have a lot coming in store. We have a program going to Peru in March. So visit the website for updates. We'll be going to Kenya in the summer of 2026, which is an amazing program. And I'd say go to the website and then also on the socials, Matthew Shamey at Instagram. And I like to share my stories and my adventures and what I'm doing there. Those
Mm.
are probably the best ways.
You're also teaching at Shiva Shakti Yoga
And
in
come
Northampton.
if you're local, yeah, come into
Come
the studio. Be welcome, Shiva Shakti.
Yes, yes. Matt Shamey, your story reminds us that confidence and connection are built not just through what we achieve, but through the way we show up in communities, in our bodies, and in our hearts. I thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today.
Thank you so much, Donnabelle, for inviting me on and giving me the space to share and be with you. And I really appreciate everything you do. I mean, talk about being a light in the community and linking people together. It's great, your work. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorouslight.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at @tohumishuman. Until next time, keep humming.